Hello and welcome to another update. In this one I'll be covering the fighting by Urozhaine south of Urozhaine after the Ukrainian capture, by the Kupiansk area as well as Bakhmut, as well as multiple developments throughout the fighting. There's a bunch of videos we have to go through, as well as something very interesting that happened deep beyond the front line of the currently ongoing combat. So starting out here in the south, the Ukrainian forces continued their attempts at attacking Urozhaine and taking over the village. Fighting continues in the area with no developments since the past 24 hours. There's just continuous buildup of Ukrainian troops in the area, trying to gather enough forces to assault it, as well as attempts at breaking through the Russian defenses around the village so that they can get a proper entry into it and attack the village from within, rather than going through the fortifications to the east of it. In correlation with this, there is this picture here which showcases a huge smoke cloud. This is taken by night vision goggles camera, and we can see there's a lot of smoke. So this is a new strategy the Ukrainians are using. They're launching massive smoke fields so that they can pass through without the Russians being able to detect where they are. As for the latest assaults by the Ukrainian forces, we have these three pictures which showcases three Striker infantry fighting vehicles. These are Canadian, that have been sent to Ukraine and were all destroyed. And these were destroyed by Ka-52 helicopters. And in correlation with that, we have this video here which showcases this Ka-52 helicopter shoot down one of these armored vehicles allegedly. So this is based on the information from the sources. We see this Ka-52 footage as well as the results of the strikes. However, these Ka-52 helicopters are not immortal, and as such we see this video here as well as the picture of the aftermath showcasing that a Ka-52 helicopter was actually shot down by Ukrainian forces. This was either deep reconnaissance groupings who were deep beyond the Russian defensive lines in the forest patches with their manpads shooting down the helicopter, or the helicopter flew too close to the front, which then allowed these infantry to shoot down the helicopter. But essentially this is the outcome. The helicopter was shot down. However, this isn't all. As we see here in this video, we see that there are two Leopard tanks that drive through a field here by the Urozhaine area. They attempt to storm Russian positions, after which one gets hit by a mine, I believe, as it is unable to drive further, and the other one retreats then without it, as it is still able to drive, so it retreats, and the first one that was hit by a mine ends up being destroyed. Then we move on to the fighting here by the south of Urozhaine, where since the Ukrainian forces managed to capture the village of Urozhaine, they have continuously been attacking south of it towards Savitne-Beneshenia. They're currently fighting by the gray zones to the south of the villages of Seremeyorsk and Urozhaine. They have not yet reached Savitne, but they are fighting here by the river line. The Russians are using the river line as a defensive line, and they're also trying to hold on to the heights they have here south of Seremeyorsk. However, the Ukrainian forces here are attempting to push the Russians out. They also have positions here by the high ground to the west of Seremeyorsk, and they're contesting the Russian positions. So the fighting is ongoing here at a heavy rate. And in relation to Ukraine's capture of Urozhaine, there is this video here which showcases some drone footage from the Russian side showing multiple trucks, armored vehicles, infantry fighting vehicles, armored personnel carriers, and so on, all destroyed within Urozhaine, as the Ukrainian forces had to storm the village and break through the Russian positions, and such assaults come with heavy losses. As we can see based on the footage here, we see multiple vehicles. I'm not counting all of them, but it is a lot. It is in the 2 digits, and generally this also includes tanks and all other stuff, and this is all located within Urozhaine. And according to the video, they counted 23 armored personnel carriers, 2 tanks, 5 infantry fighting vehicles, and a normal passenger vehicle. So there's a lot of losses connected with the Ukrainian takeover of Urozhaine and Staromayorsk. Then we move on to the Bakhmut area, where here to the north, in the northern flank, as the southern flank has reached a stalemate over the past few days. There hasn't been any movement for almost a week now. So we move back to the northern parts, where here the Ukrainian forces started attacks in the northeast of Orehovo-Vasilivka, and the Russian forces attacked in the south of Rostolivka. And according to Russian sources, they have managed to capture 2 small fortifications the Ukrainians had south of Rostolivka, but that is about it. No major advances and no major successes on either side of the fighting here north of Bakhmut. After this, we move on to the Kharkiv area, where we see the Russian forces continue their attempts at attacking at the direction of Sinkivka, as well as Kislivka and Korchlyarivka, as they attempt here to continue their own offensive operations. This is all still small-scale operations. There's no major operations here. And according to a Russian official, head of the State Duma Committee of Defense, Andrei Kartapolov, he says, as for the offensive, it is necessary to create conditions. This process is underway. So according to Russian officials, the Russian attempt at their own offensive, they are currently in the shaping phase, they're shaping operations. They are attempting to prepare for a potential offensive. They are seeing the Ukrainian offensive as a failed one. They are kind of considering themselves as already having won this battle between Russia and Ukraine, which is the Ukrainian offensive. So they're currently preparing for their own, currently fighting for the east of the Usk River line, direction of Sinkivka, Korchlyarivka, and so on. So this is all shaping operations for the Russians in hope of potentially attacking somewhere in the direction of Kharkiv or elsewhere. So the Russian forces are here doing their own preparations for their own offensive. And then moving back to the Donetsk-Zaporizhzhia area, where here within the Dnieper region, but right next to Pokrovsk, there was a Ukrainian train carrying ammunition and other stuff here in this direction. And through this, we actually see drone footage from the Russian side of the explosion that was located here. And this is actually very interesting because this is somewhat around 50 kilometers behind the front line. So for a Russian reconnaissance drone to have reached this far beyond the front line is significant. And then there is this Russian personnel official who comments on this, where he says that the Russian quality of drones, both in technology, camera, and everything in relation to that, as well as the skills of the drone operators, have significantly increased and are incomparable to the start of the war. And this is all shown by the fact that they can reach this far into Ukrainian territory. And then he also sends his own 2 pictures taken from a drone that he himself operated in Kharkiv. So the Russian drones just flew inside of Kharkiv, took some pictures, and then left again with no issues. So this is the significance of the drones, similar to how we're seeing the Ukrainians send drones all the way into Russia, into Moscow and so on, passed through all of the air defense, all of the radars and all of these things, because these small drones do not get detected by all of these things. They have to be detected by the direct eyesight. So if they don't have someone to look everywhere, essentially, at all times, then these drones can just fly through. And as such, we're seeing that the Russian forces started flying drones deep inside Ukrainian territory, and we're seeing them detect targets and hit them more accurately than ever before, as we see here with this train being blown up. And finally, we move on to the general situation of the Ukrainian offensive. So if we take a look at positions and take a look at Russia's first defensive line, so we're currently looking at Ukraine's 3rd phase of the offensive, and that is taking control over the last areas of the Russian positions ahead of the first line of defense. So we have seen that the Ukrainians have chosen these 2 areas to fight through, because they have essentially the stalemate in Lokova area has been ongoing for over a month, so we can forget that part. But essentially, the Ukrainian forces are continuously putting all of their efforts into the direction of Robotyne and Staromlinivka, here to the northeast of the defensive line. So what we are seeing is that the Ukrainian forces continuously attempt at these two positions, here by Staromlinivka as well as Robotyne. So these two villages are the last two before the Ukrainian final phase begins. However, we are seeing that they are using the last of the reserves. They only have 3 left in reserve, so everything else is committed to the fighting right now across the whole front. And with this information, we see that there is little to no potential of a final stage even starting, considering that despite having committed 91% of their forces to the front, they're still unable to so far capture Robotyne and Staromlinivka. They are closing in on it, and they are advancing slowly but surely. They have taken Urozhaine, they are entering Robotyne, and they are close to Staromlinivka. But so far they have reached Robotyne, they have not reached Staromlinivka, and they have not captured either of them. So the current phase is them trying to capture these two villages, but the situation doesn't look too well for them. And that is going to be all for this update. Thank you all for watching, and have a great day.